everybody, and welcome to probably a very eventful episode 34 of GamerVision here on the YouTubes and the YouTubes.
Yeah, that's where it goes.
Yeah.
Goes to YouTube.
How are you doing, Tony?
I'm doing wonderful. It was E3 week, apparently.
Yeah, this was TGS happened. Sony and Nintendo.
This week right here, this is why I love E3. Because it wasn't E3, but it was basically E3 thanks to Tokyo Game Show.
It felt like it, and Sony and Nintendo, they decided, hey, we're going to finally, do something. We're going to finally talk about games and stuff, because apparently people are wanting us to start talking about games.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Not every major publisher, but many of them did things this week, and it felt like E3, and everybody was talking about everything that was happening in the world of video games. Nintendo did a thing, Sony did a thing, Microsoft did a thing, Ubisoft did a thing, Capcom did a thing, Square Enix did a thing.
Everybody.
Konami did a thing, and they don't even make games anymore.
Yeah, they. We're still trying to figure out what they do over there, but.
This week they made people very happy. We'll get to that a little later.
Yeah, TGS will kind of cap off the show, because a lot of stuff happened at TGS this year, which, well, I'll get to that when we start talking about TGS. But so TGS, Nintendo, Sony, everybody was just like, we're gaming companies. What do people want to see from us? Like, why are they so demanding that we show games and
we
talk
like
about
games?
So I can't remember exactly the order. I think Nintendo was first.
Yeah,
with their direct. And also, if I remember correctly, I think Nintendo and Sony both made the announcement of their showing a day beforehand.
Yeah. That's very much Nintendo's MO. They always announce the direct 24 to 48 hours at most before it's going to happen, with the exception of something like E3, which we know usually does happen, this year being the exception.
So in probably fairly classic Sony, Sony was like, you know what, we're going to try that this time too. We're going to make the announcement of a show within 24 hours, and we'll just see how this goes. But with Nintendo, they had a pretty good show. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but
it was, I think, 43 minutes.
It was, if you liked role-playing games, there was a pretty good showing.
Specifically farming life simulators.
Yeah, Square Enix was just like, you know what, we've been releasing all kinds of stuff throughout this year, and we've been talking about a lot of stuff. We finally realized earlier in the year we've got more than Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, so let's let our developers develop.
Boy, have they.
Various Day Life was, which every time I say it is just such just classic Square Enix.
The biggest problem that I find with this Square Enix push for RPGs is everything is branded exactly the same way. They use that exact same font. Yeah. It's two things high with the very similar art used for everything, and none of these games are connected in any way.
A very thin white line between the words, or under Triangle Strategy had it, Octopath Traveler had it,
Diofield Chronicles.
Yeah. So all and now Various Day Life has it. So I guess they figured, with Octopath being such a success, they're like, it must be the logo. That must be what it is.
The logo and the art style. Except some of these games don't even use that art style. But I'm worried that maybe we're going to get Octopath burnout with all of this stuff, because everything now that they do, we said, make everything in this style, but now that they're making everything in this style, it might be a little much. They might want to mix it up a little bit.
It's very much the whole the phrase or the saying, too much of a good thing, is a bad thing, or can be a bad thing. But my biggest announcement, and I kind of went back and forth on what exactly would be my number one pick out of the Nintendo Direct, but I had to go with, ironically or unironically, Octopath Traveler 2.
You just really like that font, is what it is.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
like I saw the font and I was like, yep, that's my type of RPG right there. Like that's eight. I think it's 8 brand new characters, new stories. Apparently, they're actually listening to feedback with the fact that the characters are going to be a little more like connected together. It's not going to be like it was with the first one, where it's like, okay, well, we're a party of characters. There's 8 of us. We're traveling together. I don't know who any of you are. We're just traveling together, doing all of this stuff. I don't really know why we're together, but you seem cool. So, so with Octopath Traveler 2, they said that there's going to be more like interconnected. Like the characters are going to like actually realize that they're with other characters this time. So,
and that's a really good idea. I love it when stories do that kind of thing, where you've got all these different separate parts, but they're all interconnected, and you see the threads of stories weaving in and out of each other. Square Enix has done that, I thought, pretty well with Final Fantasy IV: The After Years, where they released all of those different character stories individually. That you know, every once in a while you'd see a character dip in and then they dip out a few minutes later, and by the end of it, all of it was interwoven together really nicely.
And I don't. I probably should have looked this up before we started filming, but I don't remember exactly when it comes out. But I just know that it's coming.
It's next year sometime. I think it's 2023.
My only real complaint, and as a collector, when they were showing the like collector's edition for Octopath Traveler 2,
February 24th.
I think it's like,
by the way,
I think it's like $170 for the collector's edition.
It's ridiculously expensive.
And it's like you have a sampler CD of the soundtrack, you have an art book, which, okay, cool. It comes in a big colorful box, which, okay, cool. But it's like a standard game case, and the little figures, there's 8 of them, I think, of the characters themselves. They're plastic. So they're not even like, they're not pewter, they're not aluminum, they're not but plastic. So $170 seems to be a lot.
Yeah, the asking price for that is a little, I think, ridiculous.
So it with it being $170, it made it. I don't have to worry about trying to buy it. So, but I am looking forward to the game, and like I said, that was my biggest takeaway from the Nintendo Direct, which I'm actually really glad that we're doing this show, because the thing that was very close to potentially, that was challenging for that top spot is one that you're now going to talk about. So,
Mario and Rabbids. No.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
They did show off some Mario and Rabbids, but that is not, I mean, I've known about that for a long time. I've already said many times that was not the announcement of the show for me. No, they started off with the showstopper for me, and that was Fire Emblem Engage. Which is a brand new Fire Emblem coming out in January. I think it's January 20th.
A lot of these games are very, very close as well. Like
that's one thing Nintendo has been really, really good about over the last generation or two at this point, is, with the exception of some things like Metroid and Zelda, which should not have been talked about yet if they weren't ready to go. I've actually done some looking and research into this. Anything that Nintendo has announced has been released within, I think the average is 6 months of the announcement. Some things are a little more, some things are day of, some things are, a couple months out, but generally it averages about 6 months away from the release is when those things get announced. And that is beautiful. I love that they are doing that, because they're not showing things before they're ready. And they're giving you just enough time to really get hyped about it and spread that informational, time period out without overextending it.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty much like what the vast majority of what was shown off at this direct fits within that like 5 to 6 month time frame, except for, as you mentioned, Zelda, which got a new name. Is it Tears of the Kingdom?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears. Okay. Which I've heard some mixed things.
Well, yeah,
about
because
that show.
they've not actually said it; they've only shown it. So we don't know if it's Tears of the Kingdom, which I think is probably the most likely thing, or Tears of the Kingdom. It could be either.
Yeah.
Tears just seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fire Emblem Engage, hands down, one of the two things that I really, really like. They started off as like, okay, cool, new Fire Emblem. This looks really good.
A really strong beginning,
Leaning very heavily into the Switch iconography for a Fire Emblem game, with the main characters being red and blue.
Yeah. You got a brand to go with it.
I mean, it works, and it looks really good. Like it looks like solid, another solid Fire Emblem release. I kind of want Intelligent Systems to stop with Fire Emblem for a while, because we've gotten so much of it since the 3DS and Fire Emblem really taking off here in the States. We've just I think we're starting to maybe reach that point of oversaturation, and I'd love to see them go back to like Advance Wars and do some Advance Wars for a little while.
Which there is 1 and 2.
Yeah, but we still have no idea. They've said it'll get released. We'll tell you when, but that's it.
When it's ready.
The other one, the surprise of the show for me, was that we are getting a remake of Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life on the Switch, which was one of 4 farming simulators shown off during the thing. 3 of them I will probably play. The 4th one, I don't know. But
you can never have too many farming simulators. Like
Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life is the first Harvest Moon I ever played. It was a GameCube game. I played it a little bit, and I actually ended up watching my wife play it more than I did. And she played through it a couple of times, and it's been close to a decade now since she's played it. And even she's like, I can play this in bed? Okay, I might play this. So it is not using the Harvest Moon name. That is a whole legal thing that happened a few years ago, where Marvelous, the developers, they split. The developers got the Harvest Moon name. Marvelous got the actual IP. And they rebranded it as Story of Seasons. So this is Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. Yeah, so Fire Emblem Engage and Story of Seasons were the 2 things that I think were the best announcements of the show for me. I really wish they had shown more Zelda. We don't know anything about that game, really. We've seen maybe a couple minutes total of footage for the Breath of the Wild sequel.
And it has a new release date, which I think May
20th? May 20th? It's in May.
So it has a new, it was speculated to potentially come out this year. It got pushed out of 2022, and then just sometime in 2023. So with the Nintendo Direct, they at least put a new release date on it. Whether or not, I mean,
they can't push it again.
I kind of feel like it's like, this game I think is kind of running into a similar thing with like God of War Ragnarok, where it's like, I figured that they just feel that these games are going to sell no matter what because of the name itself. So they're like, oh, we don't really need to show the game. We just talk more about the themes and who might be in it. And
here's the thing, though, that as the people that are going to play the games, we want to know what the gameplay of the game is going to be like.
It's like suddenly it's you start up Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like you're playing chess. You just got all these little pieces and stuff. It's like, this isn't what I was expecting at all. But so Nintendo had a really, I would imagine it's, some of the naysayers out there weren't too thrilled with it, but I think overall it was a solid showing.
I gave it, I think, a B- is my overall sort of impression of it. It was a little oddly paced. There was a lot of announcements, but not a lot of focus on the announcements that I think they really should have put more focus on.
Yeah. And I mean, kicking off the show very strongly with a new Fire Emblem, and I mean they like yeah, it was a solid showing. I think set the stage pretty high for people who are then going to be watching State of Play after, because Sony doesn't really do State of Plays very well.
No, they don't.
They've kind of they've got their showcase, and their showcase is more of like what their usual conferences would be like if they went to E3, and the State of Plays are just like the scraps and stuff. So a lot of people weren't quite excited about going into the State of Play, and then the fact that Nintendo had a solid showing beforehand, it was like, okay, well,
what can Sony do to top Nintendo? And if I'm being honest, one announcement alone, one Sony State of Play, won the if you give out that who won TGS thing, Sony hands down with one announcement.
That's I kind of think I know where you're going with this, because Sega has definitely been on a roll with this franchise, which now is going by a new name. Yep. They have dropped the Yakuza name from the franchise.
They've pulled the Dragon Quest Dragon Warrior thing that Square Enix did a while back, and so that we don't have two different franchises that are the same thing under two different names. Yet the Yakuza franchise has lost that Yakuza title here in the States. But
with kind of the spoiler being there now, what was your favorite announcement from State of Play?
It has to be Like a Dragon Ishin.
Yeah.
Which is a game I never thought we would get here ever.
I mean, it was kind of surprising that it didn't come over, because it seems like because it released on the PS3. It seemed like the series was gaining traction outside of Japan. Not a whole lot of traction, but
it was still fairly niche back then. I think it's still niche now, but it's not as niche. It's sort of
it's growing.
It's mini mainstream, I guess you could say.
It's pseudo. I think the series is gaining a fan base outside of Japan, and I think it's kind of something that we saw Persona go through. I think Persona, very strong in Japan, took a while for it to gain its fan base outside of Japan. So I think
Monster Hunter was the same way.
Yeah, so it's amazing when these companies, because running a business, it's very difficult. You don't want to take all of you have to be careful with your risks. It's kind of like with Demon Souls from Sony on the PS3. Sony was like, nobody outside of Japan is going to want to play this. And then it sparked its own little subgenre that Dark Souls ran away with. But I'm with you. Like, Ishin was my number 2 as far as State of Play announcements.
I played the demo of what was... I guess it wasn't Yakuza Ishin. I think it was Like a Dragon Ishin, but it was on the Japanese PS4 store. I downloaded the demo, could not understand a word anyone was saying, could not understand any of the text on the screen, but I powered my way through that demo because I wanted to see what that game was about, and I was so very disappointed that we never got that over here. And now we are, and I could not be more excited.
Like, what, 10 years later, 12 years later, something like that? It's finally coming over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always wanted to get into the Like a Dragon series. It's gonna take me a little bit to get used to calling it Like a Dragon, because
I'll probably still call it Yakuza. It's one of those things that has been so ingrained in my head.
I've always wanted to really get into the series. I've dabbled and played a little bit of the games. Like the first game on the PS2, I played a good portion of that, but I didn't really fall in love with Yakuza until so Yakuza Like a Dragon came out over here, which I guess I don't know what it was called in Japan because it couldn't have been called Yakuza Like a Dragon. So like, was it called Like a
I
Dragon?
think it was just Like a
Dragon
Dragon 7 over there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what it was.
So for the most part, like, my like in 2020, Like a Dragon was my game of the year. Just so much fun. I think it's a great template for a modern turn-based like JRPG. But it made me really crave to start playing the other Yakuza games. So I went out and started getting the games like the remasters and stuff. And I'm hoping to just kind of play through, just like binge play all the way through.
Yeah.
Got the Judgment game, or well, yeah, Judgment and Lost Judgment. So yeah, I'm very happy to see that this franchise seems to become. It seems like Sega's like, okay, this will be a new tentpole, like a pillar franchise for us now.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the other announcements of the Like a Dragon series?
Oh, we got 3 announcements for 3 different games.
Yeah.
Ishin was by far the best one, but we're getting not Yakuza. Like a Dragon 8 is coming. It will star what's his face, whose name I cannot remember.
There's Ichiban,
the big guy, Ichiban. Is that his name?
Well, he's from 7.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
there's.
But then it also have Kiryu from the
Yeah.
previous Yakuza games, who is much older now. He's got gray hair.
Very stylish. Very
Yeah,
stylish.
of course. I mean, he's going to be, he's going to be suave no matter
Yeah.
what he's doing.
So, yeah, we got 8, and then was it the Gaiden?
It's the weird title. It's Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name or something like that.
Yeah, like, Sega, don't go after Square Enix with the weird names. They've won that.
Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. It takes place between Yakuza 6 and Yakuza 7 and tells the story of what happened to Kiryu in that time.
So it's like if you are a Like a Dragon fan, if you're new to the series, or you've been with the series since the PS2 days, a really good time to be a fan, because I think Ishin comes out in February.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I think 8 is like 2024.
2024, yeah. It's a while.
And I don't remember I can't remember if Gaiden comes out next year.
I think it's late 2023.
So pretty stacked schedule for people who are fans of that series.
Yeah.
But for me, like I kind of went back and forth on this one, but I had to go with God of War Ragnarok, mainly because
What they showed off was so good.
They really listened to the feedback, and they were like, okay, you guys want some boss variety? Well, we'll give that to you. Here's a gigantic jellyfish that, again, I'm not sure if that's a boss. I don't know if you'll fight that. Have no idea. It looked really cool. That's
just Kratos' dinner one night is what it is.
Yeah, it's like we're hunting this. And then there was like a pseudo mermaid thing that like swam up to one of the windows of some underwater thing that they were walking through, and just this black night thing, and then there was like this smoke thing. Don't really know how you're damaging that, but yeah, I'm really excited. Like they had with God of War 2018, like they did such a really good job of the combat system. They're making advancements to it, and just the fact that the bosses are going to be so varied. It eked out my top spot from the state of play from Ishin.
My favorite part of that whole thing was the nice bait and switch they did with the trailer. And they started off with this like, you know, intense music, and they're showing stuff, and they're flashing just like hints of a controller, and you're like, this is going to be the announcement. They're just going to show you that you're getting a God of War controller.
I would not put it past them to do that, and so
and when I just imagine the wind coming out of everybody's sails about the this intense trailer for a controller, and then they showed like 7 or 8 minutes worth of gameplay.
Yeah, like so when they said that we've got one more thing to show you, and I was like, okay, this has to be it. Like God of War comes out in November 9th. Like the window is shrinking to really show off this game. And then they were doing the super epic reveal of the controller, and then like the screen goes black, and it sits there for like what feels like forever, but I think it was like 10 seconds, but it felt like 2 or 3 minutes, and I was like, this cannot possibly be like. The state of play was solid to really good.
Let's end on this controller reveal.
Yeah, the controller looks okay. I think they could have done more with it.
I like the blue-gray color scheme.
Yeah, but then they actually showed God of War Ragnarok. I was like, oh, you know what you're doing. You know that people were super excited for this, and you were just toying with people at this point. Like, but I think this, it's not really it's not really an award. The bar is really low for state of plays, but I would imagine that this is probably like their best or second best state of play.
It's really high up there.
I think the state of play that they did around E3 time with like showing off the summons for Final Fantasy 16, I think that's probably their best one, but solid showing, and they didn't flub it like I think a lot of people were thinking they were going to.
Well, when you go in with your expectations super low already, they can only exceed them, and I was very, very happy with what Sony showed off. Like Yakuza, it's going to take forever to stop calling it Yakuza, but Like a Dragon Ishin is the type of game that would get me to buy a PS5.
Like it looked good, and the fact that there's not only that game but 2 other Like a Dragon games in the pipeline. I'm curious to see what all they do with Gaiden, because I think that was like samurai gameplay and stuff, like mixed with some ranged gun combat. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. But with Nintendo and Sony doing their things, and then they're like, okay, we're done. The dust is settling. And then the Tokyo Game Show was like, it's been several years since we've had a good one of these. So I think it's time to really wow people again. E3 is basically dead, so we don't really have anything being, we're not really being compared to that anymore. So kind of, again, the bar, I think, being pretty low on that one too. But it was a really good showing. Like, so many games. And one of my super, like, I just really wanted it to happen, announcements happened. Konami rising from the dead, crawling or dragging their corpse out of that Kojima-shaped coffin, and announcing that Suikoden 1 and 2 being remastered in a collection together. So exciting. Especially, like, for me, I don't have a physical copy of Suikoden 2 because it's god-awful expensive.
Yeah.
But being able to play these games, and I don't know if I'm the only one who's super excited about this, but the first game allowing you, like in the remaster, allowing you to run diagonally. Oh man, it's just
diagonal movement is important.
that's with it being such an early PS1 game, and you just had like up, down, left, right to move your character. You couldn't run in northwest or southeast or anything. Like you just had to go down and then over. Just being able to run diagonally, just if I wasn't sold already. But it is. I'm almost so with the remaster. I might be getting ahead of myself, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I'm likely getting ahead of myself. It's pretty much a guarantee that I'm hoping.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up, because you know what's going to happen the second you do.
Suikoden 3, 4, and 5, I hope, get the same collection remaster treatment. Like, I'm not looking for it to be graphically on par with Final Fantasy, because let's face it, the franchise has never been a pretty looking franchise. But I would love to be able to play all of these games on a modern platform in one place. So that was my, like, it really didn't matter what else was going to be happening at TGS. Like, once I saw that, I woke up, I saw that, I was like, I'm done. TGS is good for me. One of the greatest TGSs they've ever had. So
it was very good.
But like, Microsoft is really making a play for Japan.
They want to get Xboxes sold in Japan very badly, and you could tell that they are trying very hard now to at least make some sort of push into Japan.
That's
because they showed off so much stuff, and a ton of things coming to Game Pass. For Game Pass subscribers, including lots and lots of Japanese-style role-playing games.
Persona headlined quite a bit of those announcements. I think there's, three? I think there's Persona 3, 4, and 5?
It's Persona 3 Fest, Persona 4, don't remember which version of it is, and then P5 Royal. Yeah, I think P4 Golden, and then Persona 5 Royale. Persona 5 is coming pretty soon. It's October, I think, is when Persona 5 drops on Game Pass.
That is right around the corner.
But the day Microsoft announced a bunch of stuff coming to Game Pass, they dropped, I think, 6 games that day on Game Pass.
I think Ni no Kunai was one of them.
Including Assassin's Creed, Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, Danganronpa V3. Some big names on Game Pass that day. Deathloop is coming today, I think, actually. As of we're recording, I think it dropped today.
Deathloop.
So it's hit that 1 year PlayStation exclusive, and now it is now on Game Pass the second they could put it on the service.
But for anybody out there, anybody who has not played Ni no Kuni, I still don't quite know how you pronounce that one. I did a review for that so long ago.
Wrath of the White Witch is such a pretty game. It is one of the prettiest games that has ever been made.
Like, back during the All Your Show days, did a review with those guys, put it up on the All Your Show channel. It is such a good RPG that for a while was locked to the PS3, as so many other things have just been doomed to that. I know a remaster came out, and that's what's on Game Pass now. So for anybody out there, like Studio Ghibli did the art. Like this, it was just, it looks gorgeous. It plays amazing. The characters are awesome. The soundtrack is just mind blowing.
It's an incredible game.
Now that it's on Game Pass, nobody has any reason to not play this game.
Unless you don't have Game Pass, then just buy the game, because it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's still people out there that I am a PlayStation loyalist. My loyalty has been waning over the last year or so. Jimbo, I have Game Pass. It's a great service, and for RPG fans out there, play Ni no Kuni or Ni no Kuni. Like,
so good, so good.
After you're done watching this show, play that.
Yeah. I think it's available in the cloud, so you don't even have to download it. Just click play.
Yeah, on your phone, on your Xbox, on your PC. If you have a Samsung TV, like Microsoft is making this so easy for you to play these games. Like soon we're going to be making jokes about how Game Pass, you can play Skyrim on Game Pass on your refrigerator.
You can actually. I've seen people do it.
I mean, Samsung, like I'm sure it's there.
Those fridges that run on Android operating systems, you can get Game Pass on your fridge. So it is possible.
But was there, I mean, outside of just the slew of RPGs that Microsoft is dropping on Game Pass and really getting to the Xbox ecosystem, was there anything else that stood out that really piqued your interest?
The other thing is just there's more content coming for Forza. They're getting ready to celebrate their 10th anniversary. And there's a big festival coming to Forza that's going to take place like all around the world. It's not just in Mexico now. So they're going to be doing some stuff in Colorado, France, Italy, England, and of course in Mexico. All of the places that they've been in the Forza Horizon world, you're gonna see some stuff coming to Forza Horizon pretty soon.
It was a great week for gaming, for Tokyo Game Show, Sony, Nintendo, Ubisoft showing their stuff off, Square Enix, Sega, and Konami. Even Konami, like they're coming back, people. They're coming back.
We'll see.
But do you have anything going on over on the ye old Twitches?
At the moment, not a ton of stuff. I'm thinking about maybe doing some Monkey Island streams. That just came out. A new game called The Outbound Ghost just came out today. That is a Paper Mario, clone.
Oh man, yeah.
Which looks incredible. So I might do some of that.
So I saw that and then I forgot about it. But yeah, definitely need to check that out. Not a whole lot for like I'm kind of keeping the slate clean with Star Ocean: The Divine Force coming out, so I'm trying to as far as like streaming goes, I haven't really done much streaming, but that game will be like the headlining like game for that. Kind of just cleaning up some of the backlog of games, but yeah, I'm super excited for Star Ocean: The Divine Force. The demo is available now for anybody that is wanting to check that out. I am Jeff from Just One More Level.
I'm Tony from Procedurally Generated.
And we'll see you with the next episode of GamerVision here on YouTube. More gaming to talk about. See ya, everybody.
Bye.